Hello.
Welcome to Historia.
I was trying to sound like the robot voice. But I guess that's not what we're doing today.
Hello.
Welcome to Historia. Ha 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 ha. I'm Kylie.
I'm Jamie.
And this is our fourth episode of the night.
Mm-hmm. Our final one for the night, but still equally as interesting as all the other curious ones we have done.
They're all wonders.
Yes, they are very interesting. Last week we covered William Shakespeare.
Yes, the man, the myth, the legend himself.
Literally a legend since there's like nothing on him.
Yeah, he's like, y'all don't get to know anything about me.
He's like
Bye.
in the wind. Like, did he actually exist?
Ooh, new theory.
Or did all of his all of these drama people just
create someone?
Like, we don't know.
Ghost right. Oh, shit. The new theory unlocked.
Don't take our word for it.
Yeah, please don't. Most of the stuff we say is just... No, I'm just kidding.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. All right, so what are we talking about today?
So, as promised, I am continuing on my summer bucket list of places to go see if you are traveling around. And this week we are going across the world, kind of, from Asia to Europe.
Oh!
Ba-ba-bum.
We were in Europe last week, too.
Yes. We were in London, in the little tiny country.
London to England. Mm-hmm.
And now we are in France.
Wow.
I did talk about this country not too long ago with Marie Antoinette, but I decided to hop back over because they have a lot of history. Shockingly, but not surprised. But I thought that this attraction, I would say, is probably one of the most famous in the world, and its story deserves to be told. Because not a lot, people see it and they're like, huh. But they don't actually know the story behind it.
Eiffel Tower?
Yes.
Oh, I called it.
Yeah. So this week I'm going to be covering. It's a piece of art. Literally.
Oh my God, that's so interesting. I know nothing about its history.
Yeah, and it's inspired many because you can see it from various parts of the city. People have picnics there. People like that. It's the main focal point when you think of France.
Oh.
Or of Paris, really.
Yeah. I've heard it's like the only thing you really should go to Paris for. Besides Disneyland, of course.
Well, there's the Louvre.
That's true. But I've heard it's like pretty dirty.
Yeah, Paris it's interesting. And then the French. But so with the Eiffel Tower, it's literally you want to get that view of it. Like the hotel that you're staying at, it's bougie if you can see the Eiffel Tower.
Oh, for sure.
But before we get started, I want to go over where I got my information from. So for the Eiffel Tower, I actually got all my research from toureiffel.paris, their website. It had so much on it. It had pictures. It had details. There were so many different tabs that kind of separated each little mark of the Eiffel Tower being built and what it was used for and pretty much the story of it, the restaurants of it. It's crazy. There were so many different side tabs to really explore the history of the Eiffel Tower. It's crazy. I love the website though. So let's dive into the art. So to start the conversation, the Eiffel Tower was originally a concept that not even the name or whatever, just the concept of a tower being built that Paris wanted as a statement piece for the World's Fair in 1889. So we don't have them anymore that I know of, World's Fairs, but they were super huge in the 19th and 20th century. That was where, because we talked about it for Disneyland.
Yeah.
He went to the World's Fair to present how, or no, we didn't. I watched Behind the Attraction. That's what I watched. And Disney went to
okay, that makes
the
sense.
World's Fair.
Because for a second I was like, wait, I don't remember that at all.
No, he went to the World's Fair in Chicago to present some of the rides for Disneyland when it was opening.
Okay.
So the World's Fair is pretty much, it was a huge attraction from people all over the world would go to present their ideas or present cool things. And each country would always do something that like surprised someone or surprised the people that would go there. Like a huge focal statement piece that you're just like, whoa, that's crazy. So an example that being an American that you can understand as a statement piece for the World's Fair is the Space Needle in Seattle. That was built for the World's Fair that they had there. Mm-hmm. So that's like an example to give. So the Eiffel Tower, though, was, of course, it wasn't called this, but it was a huge attraction that Paris wanted to draw the eyes during the public during the fair to the public. So what officials wanted, so like the Parisian officials wanted, was for a 300-meter tower built that was unique and different. They wanted something that
to stand out.
Yeah. Because there were going to be millions of people making their way through this fair, and it had to be unique. So, of course, a contest was held. Yeah. So engineers and architects and their companies would have to draw up a design for the World's Fair Tower and submit it. So 107 projects would be submitted to these World Fair officials.
I want to see those.
Yeah. And after heavy deliberation, it was decided that entrepreneur Gustave Eiffel, engineers, a part of his company, Maurice Coquelin and Emile Noguer, and architect Stephen Silvestre, would be chosen to create the World's Fair structure.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I want to see like the other things that people came up with.
Yeah.
I'm so curious.
That's why it's called the Eiffel Tower, because the guy,
into Eiffel.
Mm-hmm. The Eiffel Company. So
is he German?
That is why. No, he was French.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know why it sounded German.
So Eiffel, an engineer by trade, was invested in making sure the engineers in his company design would come to life. And he actually patented the original design for the Eiffel Tower before the competition in 1884. So he made sure that like it was protected under his name. But they just decided to kind of like tweak whatever they needed to and submitted it.
Okay.
To be like, hey, what about this one? So by 1886, the design was a success, and it was actually becoming on its way of the Parisian work of art. One of probably their largest piece of art, I would say.
Yeah.
But so Maurice and Emile knew that the design they created needed to be worked on because they wanted to make the Parisians happy with the structure. So they went to architect Stephen to make sure that it would be appealing to the people of Paris, because it was going to be there for a while. And so they wanted to make sure that like it was going to be a focal point because they were kind of judgy.
Yeah, you can't have something ugly.
I mean, and Paris is old.
Yeah.
And their architecture is very old. It's very marble. It's very clean cut. It's very fancy. And so they needed to make something that like, okay, we're a bunch of engineers. Like, how can we make something like this tower be fancy, but also like very unique to us?
Yeah.
And to be different.
I think they succeeded.
Yes, we'll see. So this structure was going to be kind of like, I guess like in the main center of the city, but I feel like Paris has grown so much that it's kind of just like there now. But it can be seen for miles. Like it's a huge ass structure. So a lot of people, you can see it from all parts of Paris. But it needed to look presentable and unique. So Stephen would go on to shape the plan structure to have like a curvature and then the arches that we see. Sorry. But the plan of the arches was to give off kind of that like railroad type feel arch that you see going over like cliffs, or like not cliffs, but just like canyons and stuff like that. Like those arches that you see.
Yeah.
Like in them. So they kind of wanted to go off of that because they're engineers and architects when it comes to like different types of like metal work and stuff. So they had to figure out how they were going to make like a structure with that. And they thought, well, the arches would look presentable with how they did that in kind of like that boxy shape with like the A-frame.
Yeah.
So
that's interesting.
Mm-hmm. So it needed, so they had that first level between the legs with the arches, but he also had constructed glass walled halls on each level of the tower, and they put the bulbous shape at the top of the tower as well to give it a kind of unique feature of where like the light is for it. And then eventually the antennas would go at the top of it, but that wasn't for years. So the curve of the tower they came up with was to protect the tower from moving when strong winds blew. Because it was like a wind resistant type of way. Like, of course, like it might move if the winds were like at hurricane level. I don't think they get to that point.
Yeah.
But it pretty much was to give it sturdy structure so that like if the wind was blowing, it would kind of curve with it. So it wouldn't like move it like this.
Yeah.
Or like back and forth. Because this is like 1,000 feet structure. This thing is massive.
Dang.
So they wanted to make sure that it was going to stay on the ground as much as possible and not move.
That's fair.
Yeah. It took some time for the tower blueprints to be finalized, but when it was finally ready, it was now for the Eiffel Company to break ground. The assembly would take their first dig on the foundation on January 26, 1887. They had only 2 years to get this done.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and they wanted 1,000-foot structure.
Yikes.
A lot of work was put into this tower and also a lot of materials. For the Eiffel Tower, if you are not aware, it is not made of steel, as some are too believed. It is actually made out of iron.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So rivets, which is a metal, like a giant metal bolt, was used to keep the plates used on the tower together. So, like, if you get a close-up look of the Eiffel Tower, you see those little, like, divot things.
Yeah.
Those are the rivets.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what keeps it together. The structure consists over 18,000 metallic parts, but put into good use to create such a unique design. All the pieces were used on the tower were made at the Eiffel's factory at Levallois-Perret, which was located just outside of Paris. So it was pretty convenient when they needed to get the materials. Like, it wasn't that far, right? Like, they didn't have to go all the way over to, like, 3, like, towns over or whatever.
Right.
It was also put into place by Eiffel himself that because the iron over time can corrode from weather and just time in itself to give it kind of like a rusty or gross type of look as like iron kind of does over time, he wanted every 7 years the tower to be painted in a thick coat. And they've actually kept up with that. Like, they're constant, like every 7 years they're doing that to make sure that structure is standing tall and proud. Yep, that's one thing that he wanted, and they're like, okay. So in the early stages of putting together the tower, regular bolts were actually used, but as they progressed further into the project, that's when the rivets were put into their place. Because as soon as the taller it was getting, they're like, we need something a little bit more sturdy. So they removed those like other bolts and replaced it with the rivets. It took 4 men to assemble each single rivet into place.
Oh my God.
It was intense. So while building, wood scaffolding and small cranes mounted onto the tower were used for workers to get around on each level as they built upwards.
Okay.
To like get all the rivets, because like they had to at some point. Like, the taller that you get, like, you're not gonna fucking climb it.
True.
You're gonna figure out a crane system to help you out. So the foundation would be completed in 5 months, which is pretty quick for how large the structure is.
That is quick.
The total width of the tower is 410 feet.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they got that foundation done in 5 months. So each width of a pillar is 82 feet. So it's a pretty big foundation to get done. I don't know how they did it. The next year and a half would go by, and on March 31st, 1889, it would be officially completed. But this is not the end of the story. There is so much more to understand. In its final form, the tower would stand at 1,024 feet. It actually has gotten larger because of the antennas, but that's just adding just like 30 feet or so.
Yeah.
So, but the weight of the tower would end up being 10,100 tons and use 2.5 million rivets to keep it all together. That's a lot of material.
That is. My God.
Yeah. So, at most are aware you are probably able to go to the top, to the very top, to look out and see all of Paris. There are 5 lists that assist you to the top to get to the full view of Paris. It would take Eiffel in his time 2 years, 2 months, and 5 days to complete all of this, including the lifts. This was lightning speed to be completed in time for the World's Fair. This was not possible without the help from the people of the Eiffel Company. There were 50 engineers and designers who worked on the projects, and over 5,000 designs put together from the pillars to the beacon at the top. There was a design for every single piece. And the pictures on the website too also have like the designs, that blueprints that they had for like the arches, or like every single piece that they put together, like the plates and stuff like that. They had to figure out the math and the science and how they were going to put it in, and they had to draw it all out. So they have like a bunch of those papers too.
Wow.
It's crazy. In the factory creating the elements, there were 150 workers. So in the factory alone, making these rivets and plates and stuff. And on site, so like on the construction site, there were anywhere from 150 to 300 workers.
Wow.
Yeah. And they were working long ass days. There were contractors there, but their whole purpose was to make sure to guide other workers into putting the rivets on correctly. Like that was their whole job. It's like, move it over a little bit.
Pretty important, I guess.
Yeah. So it was a continuous job, and it was to get it done in time. And because they had limited time to get to the tower up and running, this meant that they were working a lot. The Eiffel Tower is now a symbol of Paris, but it wasn't always. During its construction, the people of Paris had some pretty negative reviews about it and the construction. Like the Parisians did not like it. I found one comment by a man named Leon Bloy funny, as he called the tower as truly tragic street lamp. And then one called it like something skeleton because of like the of how it looks. But yeah, like people hated it. There were like pamphlets of people writing about how it was like ridiculous, how it was not needed, how they were just ruining their time, like making it hard to live in Paris with all like the noise and like the smog and stuff.
I can see that.
Yeah, like
I would probably feel the same way. Like, why are you doing this?
Yeah, people were pissed.
That is funny, the skeleton thing, because I'm like, it does kind of look like a skeleton of a building.
Yeah. Yeah, so they were just trying to find a reason to hate it because, yeah, it was ruining their life because they're working on it 24/7 for 2 years.
Oh my God.
But it also could have been that this was new and different. Like this type of art was not a Parisian style. It was unique for sure. But more notable like monuments in Paris or even in France are made to look elegant and to have like a true purpose behind someone or something, or just to have like that marble look. Or like when you look at the Louvre, of just the art that it has, it's very old and Renaissance, or very kind of just majestic in a sense. Whereas like you look at the Eiffel Tower and it's taking this modern turn, which is different for them. It was weird.
Yeah.
So to see this 1,000-foot structure being built that was against what they knew, of course you're going to take a negative response to it. You're going to be like, what is this? Because they didn't see it as art at the time.
Right.
They saw it as a nuisance.
That's so funny.
But the perspective did change when the tower was finally completed and ready for the World's Fair. Leading up to the World's Fair, it was decided to adhere to the popularity it was sure to have. 4 restaurants were actually built on the first floor of the platform. So they had 4 restaurants built at the time, like right underneath, like the arches and stuff. The restaurants relied on gas lighting until the 1900s and could reach up to seat 500 people, like per restaurant. So these were pretty big, and they were busy restaurants at the time. Unfortunately, these original restaurants would be demolished in 1937 when it was decided to do a complete restoration on the restaurants. So there has been a lot of restorations on this lot. So now the tower completed by March and those who could visit it, but the lifts were not working. So I don't believe they opened directly in March. I think they waited until May as I'm reading that, as I am like going over my head of like my notes. But luckily for the World's Fair, they would not have to endure like they didn't have the lifts going the first week.
Okay.
So they had to climb.
That sucks.
1,000 feet in the air.
Yikes.
Yeah. So it would be on May 15th, 1889 to November 6th of that same year that Paris would welcome all to celebrate for the World's Fair. The World's Fair was a long ass time. It was a while. So this particular World's Fair was important to Paris because it was the 100-year celebration since the French Revolution.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, what better way to celebrate your independence than host a giant party?
Woo!
As the World's Fair opened, the Eiffel Tower was a spectacle that actually attracted a lot of attention. Like, people were like, holy shit, this thing is pretty cool. People loved the unique design of the Iron Tower, and lines were long to get to the top. So the first week, they were still a work in progress to get the lifts going. So about 30,000 people had to climb those stairs.
Oh my God.
In that first week, yeah. But after the week, luckily the lifts were in motion and guests started to go up to see the beautiful views of Paris. At this point in time, the Eiffel Tower was the largest in the world. And everyone wanted to say that they witnessed the masterpiece of the Eiffel Tower in the world's largest or tallest building. So, of course, you're going to have a lot of people going.
Yeah.
Over the few months the World Fair was open, the tower held witness to almost 2 million visitors. The fair was a success. But again, this is not the end of the Eiffel Tower's importance. Originally, the tower was only meant to last about 20 years before thought of being torn down. It wasn't supposed to be there forever. Yeah. But Eiffel, he didn't want this to happen. This was one of his life's works that was a huge success. I believe Eiffel even helped with the development of the structure of the Statue of Liberty.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
I think we talked about that at some point.
Uh-huh. So he actually had huge influence when it came to a lot of structures, but he was also a man of science. But he was like, okay, this is like a huge, important tower that was for the 100-year independence, the World's Fair. Like, I want to keep this going. I want this here still.
Yeah.
So he had to think of like a way of how he could keep this building afloat, that it would not get torn down. Mm-hmm. So he decided to use his background in science to help save the tower. Technology was growing quickly, moving into the 20th century, and Eiffel knew that. So he came up with the purpose of the tower to be hold of science experiments. The initial use for the laboratory Eiffel set up on the top was that of the physics experiments, optical telegraphs, and astronomical observations. This laboratory would be built on the 3rd floor for scientists to conduct their studies. There were 72 scientists that would conduct studies at the tower over time. I am not going to name all of them,
Fair.
That is a lot of names, but I recommend looking them up on the website because there are quite a lot of them, and they all had different backgrounds for like what science that they did, but they all worked there and did some of their research there.
Oh, okay.
So that helped keep the tower afloat.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. As some more of the other sciences discontinued at the tower, radio communication only grew there. From the late 19th century, telegraphy was becoming all the rage, and further adaptations for it to grow was ideal and helpful with the tower's help. We see a huge leap in wireless transmission in World War I during the Battle of Marne. Radio telegraphics were used from the towers to inform those that German officials were struggling on administrative issues, which with that information provided to those who were like trying to figure out strategies to like attack German soldiers, the French were able to and lead victoriously against the Germans in that battle because of the help of the radio telegraphs that they were being sent. So you can thank the tower for that. Another huge leap was when television started to make its way around in the 1950s. The tower improved with connecting satellites to it to provide programs for people who had televisions.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So it's pretty much kept as like a satellite tower for TV now.
Yeah.
So progression in radio and television have only grown in Paris because of the tower. Without its help, I have no idea how they would have organized that. They would have had to make a whole building for itself. I have no idea. Mm-hmm. But even with all of its advancements in technology of the tower, it still hasn't changed its beauty. Like you would have no idea all of this is going on. I would say it has only grown in popularity, but I put in my notes, but that could be because of population growth.
True.
So over the years, the Eiffel Tower has undergone a lot of restorations, and one of them was the restaurants that I had mentioned earlier. So the restaurants have been constantly changing names and where they're located, but they keep to their homage of authentic Parisian cuisine. Like they wanted to keep that because if you're going to the Eiffel Tower, it's a representation of Paris. So what are you going to eat? Parisian food.
Yeah.
Croissants. James was in France last week and he was so mad because for breakfast, he eats a lot. And he was in like a coastal town in France, and all the restaurants that he went to only offered croissants for breakfast and orange juice. He was so
Sounds
mad.
about right.
He's like, I just want a real breakfast. I don't want a croissant. And I'm like, what do you expect? That's what they eat.
That's how I felt in Italy because it was like all we had was like croissants for breakfast.
It was just
like,
pastries.
Yeah, I was like,
it's like when you go to these countries, like their breakfast is completely different from ours.
yeah. We like eggs and sausage and bacon and all that.
He was so mad. He was like, a freaking croissant. He was like, I could eat like 10 of these and still be hungry. And I'm like, you should not have 10 of those.
Yeah.
So in the latest restoration, the brasserie on the first floor would be completed. It's a restaurant. Would be completed in 2022 and renamed Madame Brassiere. There is also a super fancy restaurant that I'm sure is very expensive on the second floor. This restaurant is the Jules Verne restaurant. It was completed in 1983 and has had since been a must-see dining in Paris. It is super fancy. It looks super nice and very high class. This place is so high rank that it has had multiple triple Michelin star chefs. I think the latest one is Frederick Anton. I could be wrong, though. It could have changed since then. That's just what I saw on their website. But, of course, there had been priors to him, but they all have been Michelin star chefs.
Ooh.
Which is bougie if you don't know what a Michelin star is.
It's rich or expensive. That's what I was trying to say.
Yes.
Expensive as
Expensive food. So now if you're going to visit this giant piece of art, do not forget to visit during the evening. Created in December of 1985, electrician and lighting engineer Pierre Bedot constructed the illuminations of lights that the tower shows off every night. So I believe before then they always did the twinkling of the lights.
Yeah.
And they have like a whole system of like from the wattage that they use now to like the old lights that they used. But this was for like the displays, like the color displays and just the projections that they put on the Eiffel Tower now for like special occasions.
It looks all sparkly.
Yeah, and it's not even the sparkles. Like sometimes they did one, and I think it was like for like French Independence Day or something like that. It did the red, white, and blue colors on it, like illumination of it.
Oh, interesting.
It's super cool, and they've done a bunch of different colors too.
I feel like I saw like a Pride one. Like
Yeah.
I feel like they did rainbow last year or something. I feel like I saw that at some point.
And then I think I can't remember. It was like, I don't know if it was for the Ukraine or some terrible like terrorist attack or something that they did the colors.
Yeah.
I can't remember what it was for. It
Yeah,
was
I know what you
all
mean.
over the internet, though.
Yeah. I think it was Ukraine.
I don't remember.
I
It
think
was something like, or no, it was something in Paris. Because it was like Paris Strong.
Yeah, because it was like wasn't a shooting.
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
Something like that.
A bombing.
Oh, God, I can't remember. Oh, it was a bombing.
Yeah. The only reason we can't think of this is because too much of this shit happens.
It does.
Like, that's why we're like, I don't know. It was a bombing in Paris a few years ago.
I'm aware of it, though.
Yeah.
There was something.
It happened, but there's just so much, like, tragedy that it's, like, hard to keep track.
It's so sad.
I know.
So the first decorations of light was met with 336 projectors that gave off its yellow-orange glow from the lamps, and then they did it was kind of like a basic illumination that they would come out for like certain occasions. But by 2004, the lights were replaced with, so the sparkly lights were replaced with a 600-watt lighting to save more energy when giving off the lightly glow of the tower. So now they're conserving energy, which is good.
Yes.
Good for them. So the Eiffel Tower has its light shows, and they've improved a lot since the unveiling. There are many different effects that it gives off. There are the classic sparkling lights. There's different colors for show. I think they did green for one of their green initiatives. They did the whole tower to be green. They even did a countdown show for the new year.
Oh, cool.
There are around 20,000 bulbs to make this all happen. This also occurred on occasions when there is a world tragedy. I think there was one where I think it was like multiple days or something. The tower was dark.
Okay.
It did not light up. And that was for as respect for whatever tragedy.
Yeah.
Again, I think it might have been for when that shooting happened.
Yeah.
And then something else too that they turned the lights off.
Okay.
So and it really shows like how much of an impact just something like that shows.
Right.
Of like how that they're listening.
Like it really represents Paris.
Yeah. Of just like, even with like the green initiative of making it green.
Yeah.
Of just like, hey, we're changing our ways to make sure that we protect the planet.
Right.
And this is just like one of the ways that like helps represent that, I guess, in like
For sure.
a basic way, but meaningful. So per year, there are on average 7 million people who come to visit the Eiffel Tower and bask in its unique design and decipher what it means to them. You can still visit the site as it is open every day from 9:30 and goes till 9:45 p.m. And in the summer, it is open from 9 a.m. to 12:45 a.m. So a long time.
Wow.
Yes. And the prices do vary depending on age, of course, but there are a lot of options for bundling as well for like if you go with families and stuff. Like I was looking at the prices. Of course, they were in euro, so I was like, I don't fucking know how much this is.
Right.
But I also was like, wow, there is a lot of different packages that you can get to visit the Eiffel Tower. I was like, I didn't even know that there was restaurants in them.
I know. That's really interesting.
But yeah, and you can like walk it or you can go up like the elevator. Like it's pretty legit.
That's cool.
So if you're on the website, it has all the details of if you want to visit, which I highly recommend you go to when you want to acquire tickets. So, and the cool part about the website too is that it has the temperature and the wind of that day. And they even put on like on it like underneath of on the third, like once you get to the top, like it's always going to be cold. So make sure bring like dress attire, like presently, because you're going to be 1,000 feet up higher in the air. Like it's going to be windy. So bring a coat. Yeah. But it has pretty much like what the weather forecast is going to be and just like the wind and stuff. So it's like you can plan accordingly that day to check. But the Eiffel Tower has become a staple piece in Parisian history. And we can thank it all because of a contest that was held for a World's Fair. Mm-hmm. There's so much more to know about the Eiffel Tower, but you will have to just go visit yourself. That is the Eiffel Tower.
That was really cool. Oh, I want to go there.
Mm-hmm.
Paris one day, for sure. So I'm going to go to Paris Disneyland and the Eiffel Tower, of course.
Yeah, I could spend several days in Paris just for the Louvre, because I feel like the Louvre you have to spend 2 days at if you really want to see everything.
Yeah.
Like I would want to see a lot.
Gotta go to the Louvre too, yeah. Those 3 places for sure.
Mm-hmm. But they don't have the Lock of Loves anymore because it almost sunk the bridge in the Seine. So
It'd be like that.
But so that's the Eiffel Tower.
That was interesting. I like it.
Bonjour.
Definitely on my bucket list.
Where can you find us?
You can find us on Instagram, YouTube. Oh yeah, I forgot we have a YouTube, but like not really.
Yeah.
I haven't posted on. I only have like our first like 3 episodes on there, but you can check it out if you want. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok at History of the Podcast. You can also email us at historyofthepodcast@gmail.com. Where are your bucket list places?
Yeah, let us know. I would love to cover them or just tell us what your favorite one was and why.
Right. We'd love to know.
I'm very curious because there's a bunch of places I would love to go visit in life or just live vicariously through you guys.
Right. All right. But we will talk to you next week.
I'm sure there'll be interesting stuff, especially along with our summer bucket list.
Heck yeah. All right.
Stay tuned.
Bye.
Bye.